Would you like to learn how to reduce oil retention in your fried foods?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to show you a great fried food hack that we tested on Pakora and even donuts. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. Now, here on WTF, every week we talk about unique ingredients and techniques and show you new recipes for your kitchen. So subscribe, ring the bell, and you'll get notified of our episodes when they come out. And remember, we are doing giveaways every single week, so you can enter to win this week's ingredients. And this week what we're going to be covering is how do you reduce oil retention and absorption in your fried foods. And in order to do that, we decided we would test out both some savory recipes, some sweet recipes, as well, batters, as well as incorporating something that's delicious. And I can't wait to start talking about this because I like fried foods. All right, I think let's start with when someone is frying something and it gets too greasy. What is happening there?
So basically there's two things that are happening. Either your fried oil isn't at the right temperature or there's an issue with the recipe. A lot of the times it's an issue with the recipe. So if your recipe, let's say, is prone to kind of ballooning up and opening up holes and allowing oil in, there's something you need to do about that. Or sometimes there's just ingredients that love to absorb oil. In this case we have some donuts that we made that have fat in them, so then they will like to pull on the fat that's outside of them and drag it in. So we found that we were able to kind of fix that.
Yeah. And when we started thinking about how do you tackle this problem of oil absorption, what ingredients did you find were the most commonly used and which ones did we end up testing?
So we tested E4M a few years ago, and we found that we really liked it in a donut recipe. But in doing research and learning more, you find other ingredients that do these types of things, and we came across that Carboxy Methylcellulose, which we will probably call CMC from now on in this episode. That works really well in helping keep out any of the extra oil that wants to come in. It's a mild thickener, and basically it just thickens up that water that's in the recipe and helps prevent the oil. That's really a great thing that it does. And it also helps with a little bit of crispiness on certain recipes. So
yeah, we did an entire episode all about CMC, I think last year or maybe the year before, and it was cookies. So good for cookies and like pastas and all sorts of things. Check out that episode if you haven't already seen it. We're going to link to it at the end of this episode. But for today, talking about oil absorption, what did you test in order to see which one was better?
So we tested CMC and E4M, and we just found that CMC really worked, so we kind of wanted to focus on that. So we went with a few different recipes. One of them is a Pakora, which is a recipe that contains chickpea flour and rice flour, and sometimes those kind of grab onto oil a little bit better than, let's say, a wheat flour would. And then we went with our donut recipe because why not test it against the E4M that we had, and we found it worked great in there, so we made some beignets out of them.
Oh, we love beignets.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I want to eat this one now. Okay.
You can wait. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to mix up our Pakora here, and I'll show you exactly how to incorporate the CMC. And it's really simple because if you have a recipe, like a lot of our ingredients, you can just add it in a specific ratio. And when you add it in that ratio, it's just going to work. You don't really have to change anything that you do. It doesn't open up another technique or a variable. It just works. Right?
Okay, great.
So that's great. So I have a little bit of rice flour here. And you can get like a really finely ground rice flour. This is just like a sweet rice flour. And we have our CMC. I'm going to place it in. And this is used in about 1% to the total weight of the recipe. That includes the vegetables. It's every single thing that's going to go into this recipe. You can increase it all the way up to 2% if you absolutely needed to. But it's really just there to make sure that it's thickening it up properly and then preventing the oil and from seeping in. I got a little bit of salt, the Janie seeds. I know I'm going to ruin that. And then I have just some garam masala. If you like to make your own, you can absolutely make your own. Just purchased a nice one. And I'm just going to mix this up. I want to make sure that CMC is mixed in there evenly. along with those spices.
All right, and we're doing pakora here, but you can use the same technique behind, you know, frying fish and meats and all sorts of things.
Any batter.
Okay.
Right, so this is like a batter that incorporates everything into it. So this is a little bit different, which then opens up a lot of different doors. But if you were to do this in a normal, like let's say fish and chip batter, it'll work just fine. And we're going to add this into our garbanzo bean flour or chickpea flour and just mix this in evenly. And now what I did with these ingredients here is you want some quick cooking vegetables, so carrots, cabbage, peppers, and I think there's a few other things in there. There's a little bit of cauliflower, and I grate them all up. I grate them all up and I leave them in a bowl for a few hours. And what that's going to do is that's going to purge out a little bit of liquid. You may be able to see some here if I tilt it. And that's going to help make that batter. One thing I don't like to do is mix this in and immediately go into the frying process. I like to allow it to hydrate for a little bit of time. So I have some that's made up over here. So I add this in there. And if your vegetables seem to not be mixing this up, and if this looks too dry, I always just have like a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of water on the side. It seems to help, you know, if you don't want it to look like a really dry mix here. It'll almost form a dough. So if you need to, just have a little bit of water. It's going to help. And also, CMC loves water, so it's going to soak up that water and really make a nice batter. Let this hydrate a little bit. Get in there with my hands and squish it around too, but I got other things to do right now. So let's let this sit. You can see it's definitely making a nice little batter here, and that's perfectly fine. So we're going to move that off and allow that to hydrate on its own, but we have some that's already done. Right? So it's sat for long enough, and it makes like this really thick, very vegetal batter.
Okay.
Right?
So you should have no problems forming it once it's fully hydrated.
Not at all. Right? It should be easy to form, but a great thing about this is that when it fries, a lot of those grated pieces kind of like flake off, and you get this really beautiful crispy texture on the exterior. And then obviously this one is done a little bit differently. This is the one that does not have any CMC in it, but this has a really great crispy texture. I mean, that's not really an issue with this recipe, but it's just something that's good about it. So great. Let's get one of these in. I just do a scoop. I don't really have to worry about what it's going to look like. You can just let them fry. Make sure that it's nice and packed down. We'll let those fry. Janie, if you wanted to break into one of these, you absolutely
Sure.
could.
And you said this one, the kind of like browner, a little bit.
The bigger
looking.
one, yeah.
So this is the one with no CMC in it.
Correct.
All right. I think I'm just going to taste a little bit of both of them to kind of get the feeling.
You kind of see a little bit of oil seepage in there. Very greasy on the outside too, I find. Which the oil retention will kind of help, you know, let that oil drip off evenly, which you can see with this one.
Yeah, I don't know if it's visible very much on the camera, but when I tore into it, there's a very distinct difference in like how crunchy these are. Like this one kind of like breaks apart. It's crispy. You might be able to hear me crunching it right now, but
yeah, it's a simple fix that's just going to make a recipe better, which is nice.
Yeah, the one with the CMC is much crunchier, lighter. The other one felt like a little doughy, probably because it absorbed the oil. So I definitely think anything would be benefiting from using it. The one with the CMC is way better. Yeah.
Great, so we can just take a look at these. We'll probably fry the rest of these up, get them in that bowl, and then we can come back and talk about the donuts.
Yes, I'm excited about the beignets. All right, and we're back, and I can't wait to dive into these beignets, but first I want to talk about this week's giveaway. And you can enter to win a bag of CMC that you can use in our recipes, links in the description below, or any of your own fried recipes by leaving in the comments something that you would like to try this with in order to make it less greasy. So, Scott, when you were doing the beignets, did you find any differences compared to doing a batter?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of difference that you're going to get with like texture, especially the uniformity on the outside is when it proofs. Like holes won't open up where the gas wants to escape from the yeast and things like that. So you're just going to find like a overall like better dough. That's what we found. But you may need to increase the hydration just slightly. This recipe, it doesn't really matter, but in other recipes it may. So if you're adding CMC, just watch it. If you need to add a little bit extra water to account for it, then go right ahead.
Yeah, and I know that we have here a side-by-side comparison of one that we did with CMC and one without. Can you talk a little bit, which one's which here?
So the more oblong-shaped one is the one that has no CMC. You can definitely see on the bottom, if you lift it up, that it's like, as it proofed and as it cooked, it kind of, made a less uniform shape.
Yes.
But on top
and
here,
coloring
it's really
too.
beautiful. Yes. So yeah, you'll definitely see on this side when you just broke it, you can see how greasy it gets.
Yeah, I'm like
just because this recipe has butter and cream cheese emulsified into it, and when you're frying it, that stuff loves to pick up extra fat. So that's how the fat kind of gets introduced to this. So the CMC helps prevent that. You can just see how fluffy this one is. And then you can also see how greasy and like the big pockets at the top. So if you loosen up on that, you can see the big pocket at the top is where that oil can kind of get seeped in, and then it just drowns the entire thing.
Yeah. What Scott was laughing at is that when I was breaking up this one without CMC, like a little puddle of oil came out on the back.
On the back side, it definitely was pouring oil out. And that's just the recipe.
Great. Yeah. This one's perfectly even, so much lighter, so much fluffier. So we're gonna definitely bite into it.
Go right ahead. This recipe has kind of the best of both worlds, a slightly cakey texture, that richness that you get with a cakey donut, but also the yeasted donut, the overnight ferment that happens on them if you're doing a really nice one. So we wanted the best of both worlds, and with that we found a lot of oil seepage. So in doing this then, we were able to have a nice donut, best of both worlds. It's crispy, makes great beignets.
Yeah, I love that the outside is still crispy, the inside is super light, super fluffy, really, really delicious. I'm going to eat this entire one. This is not my first one of the day, truth be told. So definitely give these recipes a shot. CMC is a great ingredient because it can do a lot of things. Frying is just one of them. So learn all about that in the episode in the cards. And until next week, from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Guerin.